the number 9 position. This is something we've spoken about a lot. And there's one guy in this squad I know we are all very eager to watch, and that is Daryl Dike, who's been brilliant for Barnsley since that shock loan move to the English Championship from Orlando City. Is this his time to shine? Because Josh Sargent's been really good as well for Werder Bremen, scoring goals recently. That competition there, but there isn't a lot of competition for those spots. It seems like those two guys now have elevated their kind of claim, right, for the number 9 starting spot. And what do you think of Dike and what he's done at Barnsley so far, Nick?
Well, the only issue I have is that I think he's an absolutely perfect championship player. He's an athletic freak. He's got a nose for the ball in the box, and he can fight, right? Like, he is a scary guy. Joe, you've told the story before about playing against his brother or his cousin, Bright Dike in college. You have an incredible story about playing against him in college. And Daryl Dike, I feel like, is the same sort of, for lack of a better term, just monster. And what I would like to see out of Sargent and Dike is what we're now seeing out of the midfield, where I think we all know that, you know, Michael Bradley isn't completely finished or anything like that, but we don't talk about him anymore. And I would like to feel the same way about Josie Altidore. I'd like that name to only come up in emergencies because we have so many options ahead of him who are younger and promising. So Dike right now, again, how often do you think of the Barnsley Tykes as a contender for promotion? I love that. And dare I say, less prolific, but it reminds me a little bit of when Danny Ings and Burnley were coming up, and you were like, how are they doing it? But they just had a guy who knew how to finish. And man, do we need that guy in red, white, and blue.
That's very true. Andy, I mean, Dike, there's been a lot of reports. The BBC had a report over here in England that multiple top 6 Premier League teams were putting in bids of over £10 million for him. There are reports that Barnsley have a clause in his contract. At the end of his loan deal in the summer, they can buy him outright for $20 million. That seems like a bit of a bargain. If you're a Premier League team now, maybe even a mid-table team, for him, I would suggest, given how well he's settled and his style of play seems to suit English football and maybe the Premier League pretty well.
Yeah, if you truly believe in him developing into a top-class striker, 20 million is a massive bargain. If you are hoping and you're buying him on the potential that he could develop into that, it's a big risk. And so I can see both sides of it. 10 million sounded like a lot when you don't kind of think about the context of what is happening in Daryl Dike's career at the moment. He is very young. I think he's 21, 20 years old right now, and doing it at a very, very high level where he's challenged himself to go to a new country, to go to a new league in the middle of the season as well. That is always so tough for players to do, to show up into a settled team and then inject yourself into that team and have any kind of success, let alone scoring the goals the way that he's done. So maybe, Orlando City right to reject a bit of just 10 million. How crazy is that? An American striker, just $10 million. No way. Get out of here. We don't want to hear about it. So I did a little bit of digging statistics wise. So, okay, well, what would be like a comp for maybe a championship player specifically would be really nice, because that is such a unique league with so many games and with how wide open so many of the teams play, and players that have made the move on to the Premier League. And I only had to go back to last year to find something that really, really interested me. Ollie Watkins, okay, $30-some million from Brentford to Aston Villa last summer at the age of 23, turning 24. The numbers that he put up in the championship last season when he tied for the Golden Boot with Alexander Mitrovic. Daryl Dike compares favorably to what Ollie Watkins did. Now it's a small sample size. He's played not even 8 90-minute shifts since he's been on loan there, but he's got a higher goals per 90. He's got a higher shots on target per 90, a slightly lower shots per 90. So he's not as much volume, but he's a little bit more efficient with what he's doing. He's significantly more efficient with what he's doing than Ollie Watkins. And Ollie has taken to the Premier League pretty well this season. He's got 10 goals for Aston Villa. So they're similar-ish type of players where they're both good in space. They're not going to create a shot for themselves, but they're good at carrying the ball and setting up chances for others. So maybe it's not as crazy as I thought it was immediately.
Yeah, from what I've seen of him, he reminds me of Shea Adams a lot as well. Just the way he plays, he holds the ball up, he's powerful, can get on the end of things in the air, and his finishing is just pretty incredible so far. So if Barnsley don't get promoted, I mean, he has them in the playoff spots at the moment, but if they don't get promoted, they can't afford to buy him. But you'd think that Premier League clubs towards the mid or lower end would take a gamble on him, or maybe even one of the big boys, and then loan him out to another championship team for a year or so and see how he develops. So I think he's ready to make that step. I mean, looking at him, he seems like a very positive guy. Every interview he's done, he's, just kind of taking it all in a stride. And that's an incredible, like you said, Andy, thing to do when you come mid-season into the heat of a championship promotion push in a different country. And I saw him interview recently. He'd never even been to England before. So he's really taken it in a stride, and that's great news for the US and for DK going forward.